So before I get started today, I want to remind you to go to the jdavidgroup.com/hiring if you're looking for great talent, or go to the jdavidgroup.com/looking if you're looking for your next big challenge. So today, what I want to talk about is interviewing, and specifically answering questions. And the reality is that if you're interviewing for the right position, right, if you're interviewing for the right job, the interview shouldn't really be all that difficult. You should be able to comfortably answer the questions that are being asked. So I've never been a big guy on, preparing my candidates for a certain kind of question, whether it's a behavioral interview or any other kind of strategy that might come from that book behind me, entitled Who. Um, I just think that if you're confident in your vocation, if you're confident in the industry, and you're comfortable enough to apply for the job, you should be qualified enough to answer whatever questions they throw at you. Okay, so I don't want to necessarily get into that, but what I do want to get into is just a mindset and something of just that's practical, which is that if you don't know the answer to a question, sometimes the best answer, or the best answer, is frankly to literally say, that's a good question, but I don't know the answer to that question, or let me get back to you, right? Now, that usually is not going to happen in a traditional interview. Let's say, for instance, like a phone screen, or even the first time where you sit down and meet somebody necessarily, right? I think as you get deeper into the interview process, maybe the questions become more probing and they get deeper into it. But I like to use real world examples, which is why I have my podcast over Quota, because I personally don't have all the answers to help my candidates through an interview process and those types of things. And I created the podcast to find, to talk to the people that do have the answers, or the people that are making the decisions every day, right? So I had an instance today where I had a candidate giving a presentation at a company. And during the presentation, it was a mock sales presentation. And so during the presentation, a question was asked by my clients and was answered by my candidate. And it was a tough question. And my candidate didn't know the answer to the question during the context of this mock sales presentation. So my candidate told me that he just said, that's a good question. I don't have the answer to that question, but I can certainly find somebody that knows the answer and get back to you, right? Like he would do in a real life situation. And the reason why that I want to bring that up and talk about that is because the question that was asked was a question that was intended to not be answered, right? So my client during the mock presentation basically asked a question that he didn't expect an answer. Matter of fact, the only answer that he expected was for my candidate during the presentation, again, the role play part of the presentation, was to tell him that he didn't have the answer to the presentation. And where do you think that the credibility of my candidate went, right? Went through the roof at that point, right? Because think about it, as you're going through your own sales presentations and your own sales cycles, you're not always going to know the answer to the question. So if you don't know the answer, just be honest and say that you don't know the answer. And now my client, who's the hiring manager, will feel comfortable enough that if he does hire my candidate and he now becomes a member of his team, that he's going to be confident and comfortable enough to know that, you know what, I know that this person has honesty and integrity, and they're not going to try to BS the way through some sort of a sales presentation if they don't know the answer. All right. So just think about that. It's okay to say, that's a good question, I don't have the answer. Probably not going to happen on a phone screen. It shouldn't probably happen on a phone screen, but as you're getting deeper into the process, and let's say, for instance, there is a presentation, just keep that in mind. Okay. Honesty, authenticity, and integrity go a long way. And it certainly did for my candidate, who I'm happy to say will be moving to the next round of interviews. All right. That's it, everybody. Web applications. Be well.